South Korean government pushes forward with sweeping reforms, making good on the president's address to the nation from Monday. India is welcoming Narendra Modi as the new prime minister tomorrow. Will his economic pledges mean business opportunities for Korean companies? We get one view. And the Thai army declares martial law nationwide on Tuesday, saying it's to restore order in the country and that it's not a coup.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sean Lim.
And I am Kang Chae-ri. Thanks for joining us. The Korean government is moving fast to restore public confidence in the administration.
It says it's begun the process of making good on President Park Geun-hye's promises to restructure the government and root out corruption. Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
The government wasted no time initiating follow-up measures to President Park Geun-hye's package of remedies to ensure another disaster like the Seoul ferry accident does not happen in the future. As her address wrapped Monday, officials led by Presidential Chief of Staff Kim Ki-chun broke President Park's remedies into 5 main sectors and 27 measures in total. The main sectors are the restructuring of government, reforming how government officials are appointed, proposing a special law to the National Assembly authorizing the establishment of a fact-finding committee into the ferry disaster, the establishment of a national safety ministry, and the establishment of a monument and a People's Safety Day on April 16th, the day of the ferry disaster. President Park singled out corruption as the main factor undermining the country's safety standards, saying it created an atmosphere where the ferry could sink and take so many lives with it.
공직 유관단체 기관장과 감사직에는 공무원을 임명하지 않을 것입니다. 퇴직 공직자의 취업 제한 대상 기관 수를 지금보다 3배 이상 대폭 확대하겠습니다.
Prime Minister Chung Eung-won called for all-out efforts Tuesday to revamp the country's safety management system and root out corruption among public officials. A large number of state-run organizations are headed by retired public employees that have worked in firms and organizations related to their former responsibilities. These officials have been described as part of a bureaucratic mafia because of their tendency to have collusive ties with those they were supposed to supervise or regulate. According to the state-run provider of public information, Alio, 51 out of 153 heads of public organizations, or roughly 1/3, could be categorized as bureaucratic mafia. President Park is expected to carry out a government reshuffle, including hiring a new prime minister after she returns from a 3-day trip from the UAE later this week. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Speaking of efforts to clean up bad habits to restore faith in the government, according to recent public opinion data, Koreans see the corruption problem as plaguing the private sector as well. Our Kim Hyun-bin has more.
One of President Park Geun-hye's key plans for making the nation a safer place to live is cracking down on corruption in both the government and private sectors. It's an issue the Korean public feels strongly about. In a public opinion survey conducted earlier this month by the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, more than 93% of respondents said corruption was a serious problem. Nearly half thought corruption was a more serious problem than it was a decade ago, and around 80% thought it was a major issue in both the public and private sectors. So is their perception grounded in reality?
Those numbers are going to be a little higher right now because there is such a focus on corruption and the role it played in the recent tragedy. If we ask this question perhaps 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the line, I think that number would reduce significantly, and by significantly I mean maybe 10 to 15 percentage points.
26% of those surveyed said poor law enforcement was a cause of pervasive corruption. Meanwhile, 54% said they were opposed to so-called parachute appointments that allow public sector officials to get jobs in industries they were once charged with regulating.
If the pervasiveness of corruption in Korean society is widely acknowledged as a problem, what then is the solution in addressing it?
Well, the laws, I think, to go after the people who are corrupt and going through, bribery, that are already on the books. The problem is the enforcement. And I think that's where the Park Geun-hye administration is really going to try to focus, is on cracking down when they find instances of it. So it might not be a matter of creating new laws, it's just enforcing the old laws and making sure that the people who take part in that really are come down hard upon so that they don't want to do it again.
Fradhoff added that approximately 1/3 of current sitting lawmakers in the National Assembly have been embroiled in cases of corruption. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
For the first time, the world will see Korea's nuclear reactor technology being adopted abroad. Taking into account the importance of this deal, President Park took a short trip to the Gulf nation of the United Arab Emirates to attend an installation ceremony. Connie Lee reports on the extension of Seoul and Abu Dhabi's economic cooperation.
For the first time ever, a Korean nuclear reactor will be installed overseas in the United Arab Emirates. It's part of a $19 billion contract Korea won to build 4 nuclear plants in the Gulf nation by the year 2020. To mark the occasion, President Park Geun-hye and the UAE's Deputy Prime Minister Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan attended a ceremony at the Barakah nuclear plant site Tuesday, some 300 kilometers west of the capital, Abu Dhabi. The presidential office in Seoul says the 533-ton reactor, which recently passed the UAE nuclear reactor's safety tests, symbolizes the global recognition of Korea's nuclear reactor technology and safety. Seoul and Abu Dhabi also signed 3 memorandums of understanding, through which Korea hopes to create job opportunities for young Koreans in the Arab nation. The MOUs include the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation hiring some 10 Korean engineering graduates each year, and the 2 countries jointly fostering their service industries in the nuclear sector. Sitting down with Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan after the ceremony, President Park discussed 2-way cooperation in the areas of energy, construction, medicine, and finance. Despite the Seoul Fair disaster, officials say President Park made the short 2-day trip in consideration of future economic cooperation between the 2 nations. Before heading home, she met with members of Korea's ARC military unit, which has been deployed to the UAE since 2011 as part of Seoul-Abu Dhabi military cooperation. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
The Korean government is certainly hoping that the ceremony marking the first overseas installation of a Korean-made nuclear reactor will pave the way for more exports of Korea's nuclear technology. But will it? Nahyan takes a look at some of the challenges.
The demand for building nuclear power plants globally has rebounded since Japan's Fukushima disaster in 2011. The World Nuclear Association in an earlier forecast says the market is worth $40 billion a year and will grow at around 3% annually by the year 2030. And officials say President Park making a short 2-day trip to the UAE, despite possible public backlash for diverting her attention away from the sunken ferry disaster, demonstrates the government's determination to bring more of Korea's nuclear technology to the overseas market. But some experts in Seoul say this will be easier said than done. While Korea is able to build its own nuclear facilities, its technology independence level is still not up to 100%.
And in the meantime, probably over almost 20 years, they've been delving into developing the remaining 5%, which has to do with reactor coolant pumps, man-machine interface system, which is related to main control room, and last but not least, computer code, design code. And I believe that they are actually doing this one at a time. And by this time, the last one that still has to be resolved. That means probably we're 99% done. We got only 1% remaining. Now, is it the same as 100%? I don't think so, because 99% and 100% can make a day and night difference.
He also points out that if Korea wishes to win more deals from the international market, it needs the involvement of more than just the state-run Korea Electric Power Corporation, for example, participation from the private sector. That way, it can boost manpower and capital and have a better chance at beating competitors like Areva of France and General Electric of the United States. As for last year's corruption scandals involving nuclear energy officials, local experts say it's imperative that Korea clears its name on the global stage. Once Korea regains trust on top of securing a steady supply chain of uranium requirements, pundits say Korea should have a fair chance at inking more international deals in the future. Nahyan, Arirang News.
Korea's producer prices dropped for the 19th straight month in April on the back of a strong Korean won, which pulled down raw material prices. The Bank of Korea said Tuesday that producer prices fell 0.3% last month on year. The drop was led by prices of industrial goods, which were most influenced by the lower raw material prices. But the prices of service and food products closely linked to the average Korean's spending all rose from a year ago. A growing number of foreigners are coming to Korea not for vacation, but for medical treatment, namely plastic surgery. The number of foreign tourists visiting the country for medical purposes surpassed the 200,000 mark last year for the very first time ever, according to the Health Ministry. That's a jump of nearly 33% on year. And when they come, they spend money. Foreign patients spent more than $380 million on medical treatments in Korea last year. A quarter of all medical tourists last year came from China, which topped the list, followed by those from the United States, Russia, and Japan. India will be welcoming in its new Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow, and Korean companies are hoping that they can be part of the growth picture of his Modi-nomics. And Mr. Cho Chung-jae, head of South Asia team from the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, is joining us in the studio. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
What will Modi do for India's economy, do you think?
Yeah, the high growth, the pro-business policies are the core of the Modi-nomics. To this end, as you mentioned, the infrastructure and the manufacturing development, the aggressive foreign investment and deregulation policies are being pursued. These policies will contribute absolutely to increase India's economic growth in the long and the medium terms.
So during his campaign, Modi pledged to attract foreign investment and then also revive the manufacturing sector and thereby create jobs. Where does Korea fit in this picture, and which sectors would benefit?
Yeah, in the Indian stock market, the infrastructure and constructions companies, energy companies, and the capital producing the manufacturers, the financial companies, these companies, the shares have already soared. So that means the India domestic companies as well as the foreign companies will have the business opportunities more in this area. The problem is that the competitions will be heated with more opportunities. Eventually one step ahead and the proactive strategies are needed.
No, but you actually briefly mentioned the deregulation part of his potential economic policy. But for example, the steel sector, we've seen so many steel companies like BHP Billiton and Korea's POSCO having to scrap their projects in that country because of the regulatory hurdles there. Do you think things will be different under his leadership?
Yeah, the project of POSCO is already working, not scrapped. Yeah. The Modi, when he was the chief minister of the Gujarat, he removed and streamlined so many administrative procedures that inhibited the private investment. So now the Gujarat is the China in India. And during the campaign, election campaign period, he strongly criticized the maladministrations that the corruption and scandal on the coal and iron or have delayed the development and the power productions.
Okay.
So India is about to embark on a lot of economic drives. How is it going to finance all of these initiatives?
Yeah, the utmost task for the Modi government would be activation of the investment, especially the private investment. The government has no further capacity for investment because of the high fiscal deficit. Moreover, the persisting high inflation pressures hinders immediate the switch to the low interest rate policy. So therefore, I think the government has no other options than investment, especially private investment, including the foreign companies, to escape from 2-year low growth trap and jump on again the virtuous cycle of investment, consumptions, and high economic growth.
What other risks, other than the fiscal deficit issue that you just mentioned, do you see for Modi and his economic policies?
Yeah, however, this long-term policies for development, it will definitely contribute to increase India's GDP growth rate. But the recovery to high growth, economic high growth, may be expected to take a time.
All right. Well, Mr. Zhou, thank you so much for your time and insight tonight.
Thank you.
Thailand's military has imposed martial law nationwide to restore order after months of protest and deepening political crisis.
With more on this story, we now go to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this announcement by the Thai Army has taken the world by surprise, including those in the caretaker government. Has the military made any specific demands at this point?
Well, they've been urging everyone to stay calm and have reassured the public that this isn't a coup. But pro- and anti-government protesters have been warned in no uncertain terms not to move around Bangkok. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry is considering issuing a travel warning for Thailand to ensure the safety of Korean nationals who reside in or plan to visit the Southeast Asian country. Our Kwon So-won has this report.
Thailand is under temporary military rule as the army in the early hours of Tuesday morning local time declared nationwide martial law to restore order in the crisis-hit country.
To maintain peace and order and bring back peace into all groups and all sides as soon as possible, I used Law Section 2 and 4 on Martial Law 2457 to announce martial law all over Thailand.
He denied a military coup was underway, only saying the army needs to take charge of public security. General Prayut also urged people to carry on with their business as usual. Thai public television showed images of soldiers outside broadcast stations in Bangkok Tuesday, announcing that all TV stations were being secured by the military. An aide to the interim prime minister was quoted as saying the move had not been relayed to the government beforehand and that it remains to be seen whether the army chief will agree to stay impartial. The aide added this declaration of martial law was half a coup. Thailand's army has staged 11 coups since the end of absolute monarchy in 1932. The last one occurred in 2006. The declaration of martial law comes 2 weeks after Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra was ousted from office, along with 9 cabinet ministers for allegedly abusing their power. Anti-government protesters had wanted Yingluck out for months. The government had scheduled elections for July 20th after earlier polls were cancelled due to mass protests. The next elections are also likely to be boycotted by anti-government protesters who want the remnants of Yingluck's government out and a neutral leader installed. Kwon So-won, Arirang News.
And in other news, China has denounced and denied U.S. criminal charges that its army officers hacked into the computers of American firms. It's the first time the U.S. Justice Department has publicly accused foreign military officials of economic cyber espionage. China says the charges of cyber spying are completely fabricated and that the U.S. is also guilty of spying on other nations. Beijing's foreign ministry has called on Washington to immediately withdraw its claims, saying they only stand to damage relations between the two countries. In the most immediate sign that they will, Beijing has already said they are suspending the activities of the China-U.S. Cyber Working Group. Earlier on Monday, U.S. prosecutors charged 5 Chinese military officers of stealing trade secrets from 5 American companies involved in nuclear power, steel, and solar product industries. Attorney General Eric Holder emphasized the seriousness of the ongoing cyber threat.
What I think distinguishes this case is that we have a state-sponsored entity, state-sponsored individuals using intelligence tools to gain commercial advantage. And that is what makes this case different.
He added that the U.S. would not tolerate actions by any nation that seeks to sabotage American firms. Washington estimates cyber espionage costs the U.S. economy as much as $100 billion a year. And staying in China, Beijing has rolled out the red carpet for President Vladimir Putin, who arrived in the country earlier today for a meeting with his counterpart Xi Jinping. Ahead of his visit, Putin said cooperation between China and Russia was at its highest level in history. Over the next 2 days, both leaders are expected to sign some 30 agreements to further develop bilateral ties from trade to security issues. Expectations have been high that both parties will finalize a natural gas supply contract that is estimated to be worth some $400 billion. The summit comes as both countries face mounting international criticism. Moscow for its part in the annexation of Crimea and the deepening crisis in Ukraine, and Beijing over its international disputes in the South China Sea. Following the summit, the two leaders will attend an Asian security conference in Shanghai that will draw representatives from nearly 40 countries, including UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. Starting with football, Park Geun-hye and his JS Foundation have organized Asian Dream Cup charity matches around Southeast Asia since 2011. Well, this year's lineup has just been announced. Park has in the past invited some big names to play, namely past Manchester United teammates Rio Ferdinand and Patrice Evra. So for the fourth iteration, he invited Italian star defender Gianluca Zambrotta to headline the players. Zambrotta has played with European elites like Barcelona and AC Milan and helped Italy to the 2006 World Cup win in one of his 3 trips there. Now, the 2014 Asian Dream Cup festivities will also have K-pop acts EXO and SHINee, as well as variety show troupe Running Man show up, and it all goes down on June 1st and 2nd in Jakarta, Indonesia. And moving on, the Sports Pro Top 50 Most Marketable Athletes list is out, and Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton makes it to the top. Now, the 29-year-old Brit is the top contender for the F1 World title this year, and pairing that with a 7-figure social media following and a steamy relationship makes sponsors drool over his marketability. Indian cricketer Virat Kohli and American football star Robert Griffin III round out the top 3. And heading to the greens, Tiger Woods may miss his 2nd major in a row as he recovers from a back injury. Woods said that there is no timetable for return in his first public appearance since receiving back surgery for a pinched nerve on March 31st. The 38-year-old says he'll let his doctors decide when it's good to start taking swings again. Earlier this week, Woods' 60-week run at number 1 came to an end, conceding the top spot to Adam Scott. And leaving all of that there, let's get to Tuesday's top KBO matchup. The Samsung Lions hosted the Lotte Giants in Pohang. Now, baseball's top team Samsung fields Rick Vandenherk. Lotte has Song Sung-jun. Now we go to the third, Samsung's Kim Sang-soo. He brings one home on a sacrifice grounder. It's 1-0 Samsung. Now the Lions add more insurance. Park Seok-min, he slams this 3-run shot in the 5th. All before Park Geun-hye, he adds 2 more in the 6th, and the Samsung go on to beat Lotte 7-2. And looking at the other games, we have Nexon beating Hanwha 3-1. Meanwhile, Kia comes back to beat LG 10-7, and NC beats SK 8-2. Well, that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
If you were sweating bullets today, well, no, it was the hottest day of the season so far here in Seoul.
And our Kim Bo-kyung is standing by for us at the Weather Center to give us more details. Bo-kyung, fill us in.
Guys, earlier today, daytime high in Seoul soared to 28 degrees, and it was also sunny elsewhere in the central regions. On the other hand, the southern regions are under the influence of a low pressure front from water south of Jeju, which is why it is drizzling down there. Well, those of you in Jeju may want to keep an umbrella handy, as another 5 millimeters or less could fall through later tonight. Otherwise, nationwide hot weather is forecast for the rest of the week. This early summer weather does not come as a surprise, as tomorrow is Soman, which is one of the seasonal indicators that marks the beginning of summer. The UV level could be high, so make sure to apply sunscreen before heading outdoors. As for Wednesday's readings, Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan all hit 26 degrees, while Daegu soars to a hot 30. Moving on to other places, Daejeon tops out at 27 degrees, Jeju and Dokdo reach 24 and 18. That's all the updates for now, but I'll be back with more after midnight.
And that's primetime news from us tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everyone, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.